Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shadow at Night Live for Tuesday, September the 23rd, 2025. Before we begin tonight, I would like to take the opportunity to ask anybody who has been posting even slightly at violence to please stop doing that publicly. You're only going to get yourself in trouble if you do that. I understand your frustration. I understand your anger. I understand your sadness, not just for Universal Ostrich Farm and the family, but also for our country. How can this be happening? Many people have been asking themselves that question, not just in the last 9 months since this whole thing with the ostrich farm started, but way back before. Back to the Freedom Convoy, back to COVID. How could they lock us in our houses? How could they call our businesses non-essential? How could we comply with it? And here we are today. So, again, I understand how you're feeling right now because I feel the same way myself, deep, deep inside, but we can't talk about violence publicly. We just can't. I'm going to say some quick hellos here. I neglected to do that last night. Hello, Linda. How are you watching on Facebook? Michael is watching on pretty much all the platforms tonight. He usually does. Keeps track of the comments for me. Hello, Mark, watching on X. Cheryl is watching on Facebook. Gwen is watching on Facebook as well. We've got a few people watching on YouTube tonight, and that includes Jonathan watching from Newcomers Town, Ohio, over on Rumble. We have Deb and Stump Slayer, Gashi, World Peace, Seacross, Mouth of the South, 123, Vilma, Lindbridge, the regular gang is there. Don't forget to like and share. Shares are much better than likes. I'll take both. On whatever platform you happen to be watching on tonight, you guys, let's get this out to as many people as we possibly can. We're going to go live to Universal Ostrich Farm in just a couple of minutes. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Today we're comparing Crest toothpaste to SilverCeuticals toothpaste. First, we're starting out with Crest. It's a classic, it's an original, it's what I've used most of my life. But that being said, it does have its problems. First off, the consistency is so weird and thick, and I get it's a paste, but it really doesn't spread that well. And I must also say that I'm not in love with the taste. I get toothpaste isn't supposed to taste good, but why shouldn't it? But that being said, it does get the job done. Next we have SilverCeuticals. They have 3 flavors, but today we're going with Bubbleberry. And already it smells so good. So I'm excited to see what this tastes like. The consistency is also a lot smoother, and I must say it spreads way nicer in your mouth.
This literally tastes like fruit bubblegum.
Yeah, this toothpaste was pretty good. I actually went in for seconds, and it's infused with nano silver, so it helps remineralize your teeth and keep them fresh throughout the day.
100% go with SilverCeuticals.
And here's the results. What's your favorite toothpaste?
CanadaNanoSilver.com. That is CanadaNanoSilver.com, 204-808-9292. Before we go to Jeff Gaudry, who is on the ground at Universal Ostrich Farm, he's been instrumental in the negotiations between RCMP, CFIA, and the family at Universal Ostrich Farm, especially these past few days. I want to show you some video that was captured by Rebel News a little bit earlier today. This shows men in hazmat suits, but not really because they haven't got their heads or faces covered up. Looks like they're going onto the property at Universal Ostrich Farm into one of the back pens and into a hastily erected tent where they intend to do something. And there is not a lot of sound on this, so please don't comment. There's no sound. Here we go.
Is that the event? No, a blue truck there, is that?
You can hear the cat calls, obviously, from the supporters in the background there at Universal Ostrich Farm. Interestingly, when Katie was in negotiations, if you can call them that, with the RCMP officers earlier this morning, there were, I believe, at least 6 of them inside the quarantine zone, just outside the ostrich pen, where Katie was with her mom and Dave, the other owner of Universal Ostrich Farm, this morning. Let's bring him on now. Hey, there's Jeff.
Look who I
you see
found.
me?
Look what I found. That's why I was a little late, Shadow. I wanted to make it worth your while here. And Katie has been a pretty popular little mockingjay since this rebel got out of jail here.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably go through the events of the day. Hello, Katie, by the way. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Hi. It's been a day. It's been a days. It's been a time.
So what happened? Let's start with this morning. I know that you were in the pen with your mom and Dave overnight last night.
Yeah.
And then this morning there was the negotiations you had with the outreach team. So after that, and by the way, to me, this sounded a lot like coercion. What the RCMP was saying to you, that was illegal coercion.
Yeah.
But
they baited us to the back of the farm by thinking we were able to do a humane act, which was feed our animals to keep them calm and have no anxiety, following a routine that they're used to before they get murdered. They baited us to the back, with my mom and I thinking it's one of our last times we're going to spend with the animals, to have police cruisers surround our farm truck and tell us that we're under arrest. So they baited us with the humane thought. And I even had the bleachers, I called them and said, please don't yell at them. Like I said, say thank you. They did the right thing.
And I did, Shadow. I used this right here, and it sickens me in my stomach. And I yelled, thank you, CFIA, for allowing the girls to feed the birds. I feel like the biggest schmuck right now on the face of the earth.
And then they proceeded to take my mom and I, read us our rights, take us up to a YRB lot. It's a yard lot that houses all the YRB highways equipment. And that's their staging ground up here. Plunked 2 plastic chairs in the sand and set us down there for a couple hours while they went over all of our stuff and took our mug shots and trying to charge us with Animals Health Act.
what?
And yeah, breaking Animals Health Act. We're like, we are the Animals Health Act.
It's called obstruction of the Animal Health Act. Right?
No, and then we obstruction of an officer, of allowing an officer to do his duty. So that's a criminal offense. So there's 2 charges they're trying to pin on us.
Wait a minute. Did they give you the exact instance where you obstructed this officer?
No.
Of course they didn't. And
No.
you have been charged then?
We go to court in November. We have to appear in court. But this is just, it's psychological warfare. So then we have them hay bales, a big carnage wall of hay bales facing the highway so that nobody from the highway can see what they're about to do. They hit us in the back because they didn't want the world to see 2 farmers doing the right thing, feeding their animals, getting arrested. We did nothing wrong. We didn't want to get arrested today. We said, we're just staying in here to feed the animals. We will not get in your way. We are doing our due diligence and our legal process. Our leave of Supreme Court is filed. We're waiting for our emergency stay order approval. We are doing everything right. If you guys, you guys do what you got to do, but just let us feed the animals. That's all we wanted today. And they didn't let that happen. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency's look on their face is so smug. I don't really, honestly, in my heart, I think there's a lot of these RCMP officers that are wondering what the heck they are doing here.
Yeah, you know what? I want you guys to describe what it's like. And we talked about this last night, Jeff, I know, but if we can talk about it again today, because you've had more time with them.
Katie, it was an interesting day, Shadow. It was an interesting day.
And
I'm sure.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency, they're smug. They are... Okay, let's talk about exactly what you said. So when we got arrested, were all in there with their hazmat suits. And then we get to where they let us out of the paddy wagon. And the guy was still wearing his hazmat suit from in the quarantine area, out in public, out where we were being detained. Then he gets out. Then we said in the paddy wagon, oh my God, he's still wearing his hazmat suit. And then he was like, oh, and then he took it off. Then he has his stick with the camera on it. He's holding it. He gets another RCMP officer to hold the stick that was in the quarantine area. So now that officer is compromised. Then my mom and I are full of ostrich poop on our shoes, and we're just finished our chores. And they're letting us that have never been cleaned or our hands were clean, nothing. They just took us from the chores, and they were letting us use their personal cell phones to make calls to our lawyer.
So you're getting your hands on their personal cell phones,
and but we have the most virulent case of avian influenza in Canada. This is a lie. They know it's a lie. They know these animals are healthy. They want our research gone. They want the antibodies gone. It is very clear. They're doing this is whose feet are bigger. I'll say feet. We're in a precedent war.
So CFIA is smug, but what about the RCMP? Has anybody brought up with them on a personal level that you guys know this is a scam, right? I mean, like you look them in the eye. You know, I mean, you're standing inside the quarantine zone. You are completely and totally infected yourself now, if there is any infection going around the farm.
Remember, they leave here and then they drive to Vernon and they go and stay in the hotels in Vernon
and eat in the restaurant.
Yeah.
But have you had any conversations?
It doesn't spread like that. It doesn't spread like that. I'm sure
we're not
say.
Afraid. Didn't they say that to someone today? They're like, well, we're not afraid of avian flu.
And nor should 100% of the population be. Yeah.
I was like, well, good boys, because you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. So at least you're learning something.
Have any of them acknowledged that they know this is a scam yet?
I wouldn't say verbally, but if you can read. Okay, for instance, Shadow, we had we call him Mustache Boy. Just a young fella, probably late 20s, mid 20s. And, like yesterday we were coming on strong, I'll admit it. But, sometimes you need a rude awakening to realize, that you're just standing on the wrong side of history. And, he was in tears, after a couple hours. And today he rolled up thinking he was taking his post. And they were like, no, son, he's like way up the road, like a kilometer away from the farm right now, because they don't want these guys here.
Emotions,
yeah. So when we get through to somebody, it seems like they disappear off a quick. Shadow, I put a pledge out there. It's still out there. I'm going to own this. Any one of these officers who walks across the line and publicly says, I'm done, I don't support this, and leaves, we're going to raise him 1 year's salary. Any single one of them. We already got public support. It's going to happen. So if one of these guys actually does decide to do that, well, man, 80 grand, that's not a bad chunk of chains.
I know. We just wish we would have got to the hay bale hauler from Illinois sooner and bought his hay before he unloaded it, because this is I don't think he knew it. Maybe he did know what his hay was going to be used for. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we're working with hours now. And these animals' lives depend on it. And our family is going to be ripped apart in hours. And
these hay bales, they've built a wall essentially so that nobody can see what's going on in there. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And they're doing it. Well, you've been to the farm. So they're doing it on like the far side in the corner, kind of on that weird. Highway. Yeah, exactly. So it's not as visible.
Dude, you gotta understand there's 2,500 people watching this live right now that have not been to the farm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm explaining to you. Right. Like, so, in the back corner of the farm, that's not really super visible from the highway, but it is a bit visible, but not visible from here by any means, is where they're building what I would call some sort of weird little labyrinth. Okay. And, it's clear that business is going to happen, unfortunately, in this spot. We watched 4 truckloads of hay come in, fences come in, bins come in today. Unfortunately, Shadow.
So this biohazardous waste is not supposed to leave the farm. From Canadian Food Inspection Agencies, other officers that have been an officer for 20 years said it has to be burnt here or it needs to be flash frozen. So then they upgraded our quarantine zone to more. They actually added my aunt and uncle's property in without their notice. And then when they got here, they started going through their property, and my aunt and uncle have never been served. They took over their whole property.
So there's all kinds of legal implications here that you may be
Oh,
able to use against them
Today,
going forward.
Shadow, at 4 o'clock, I realized those birds hadn't been fed in 26 hours. Um,
Who was
we
doing
have
who
we
was
have a
doing the feeding?
policy. We have a policy to adhere to that is giving them the authority to cull these birds. Included in that policy, it says these birds have to stay on their regular feed routine, which is 24-hour increments. I had to get on this thing right here, Shadow, and yell at the CFIA and call them out, call out the policy to get their asses in gear at about 4:30 this afternoon to put together a feed plan that they hadn't already established. These guys came here and they didn't even have a food or a feed plan put into place for feeding these ostriches while they were preparing for this call, which could take several days. Like, so were they actually going to think that they weren't going to feed these birds for 3 days? Like, even someone on death row gets a meal the night before they die. And when I started pointing that out, it was the fastest I ever seen these guys move since this started. Can you imagine if they get labeled in social media across the board as individuals or an entity that essentially starves animals in the process of waiting to put healthy animals to their death? Like, what kind of,
That's
like, make it make sense, Shadow. Make it make sense.
I can't make it make sense, and that's one of the problems. What is the I guess for lack of a better word, the gossip going around amongst the supporters right now, Jeff, in terms of, because I know you're not going to know this because you're blocked out from going to the area where the cull is going to happen. But do we know how they're going to do this? Is it poison? Is it darts? Like, what is their
Well,
plan?
there could be a couple things, my perception and from our studies and what, it's leaning towards is lethal injection or started by a tranquilizer. So essentially a tranquilizer dart to put them out and then an injection. If we look at studies from South Africa, they would slit their throats, to be honest, Shadow. They would put them out, trank them, and cut them. And the reason they would do that is because it was quicker, more efficient, and cheaper at the end of the day. Um, However they're going to do it, it's gross. Um, Another factor that we figured out, included in all their orders and stuff, was a large batch of flammable liquid. So it's quite clear, and there was an excavator on the back of the last load of hay. So like, if we put all the pieces together of all the puzzles that we seen, and we have visuals, video, I'll send you a bunch of pictures and clips later, because we do have eyes on the other side, because there is one road you can see off of, and there also is the highway easement that you can park on. We have hundreds of supporters lining the highways right now, watching their actions and what they're doing right now. It's not as transparent as I would like it to be because of the location, but they cannot hide from this. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people are watching all the time, every single thing they're doing, like the success we've had getting contracts to cancel. I mean, if we could chisel away.
Jeff, do you want to name some of the companies who had
We
contracts and
have
then realized?
Sunbelt Rentals out of Vernon, BC. We have Clearway Truck Rentals out of Kelowna. We have Nucor Waste Solutions. It looks like they canceled their big disposal contract with them. We thought we had the hay today. There was some sort of misconception there. I was told we had the hay, but a few hours later, we see the hay roll into the back of the farm. So what happened was they chose to move locations, and it was presented that they were leaving or resending, and essentially last minute they came in, and they came in through the neighboring yard. They didn't come down the main road. They came in off the highway through the neighboring yard. So they've completely dialed in a way to bring in equipment, personnel, whatever they want, without us really knowing. What we see every day is all the officers that are involved in what they call safety and preventing obstruction. And then we also see a couple of the CFIA head honchos. They always roll in 6 in the morning. I'm sitting there smiling, waiting for them, and I have some pleasant things to say right off the bat. But other than that, Shadow,
Did they shoot down Jim Kerr's drone? What happened to Jimmy's drone? I know he was trying to fly it earlier today.
I don't know exactly what happened. It wasn't shot down, I don't believe, but somehow it randomly was dropped. Speaking of drones, I had one following me all day. I couldn't walk back to the house to use the washroom, grab a drink, put on a different pair of shoes or a sweater without a drone following me overhead back and forth. And I believe this was because of an incident this morning. We were pretty hyped up. I was reared up, and we were calling all the different companies trying to get them to cancel contracts. And one of my conversations, I said, we will destroy your company and ruin your bottom line. I believe that's a perfectly acceptable thing to say. Well, one of the officers here took that as me uttering threats. So I literally had to use the liaison officers to point out the fact that I've been a peacekeeper and a peace facilitator over the last 24 hours so that they could convince them, like there's no need to press charges against this guy. He's not that guy.
Destroy may have been a little strong. You could have said,
yeah.
Let's make him famous, something like that.
Yeah,
right?
I could have, but I really want to destroy their company if they... I know, Shadow. I got to learn to filter it a little bit. I'm a little abrasive.
So what happened with that guy who was taken away yesterday? I think he was from Ottawa, a supporter.
Yeah, his name is Tim. So there is no proof that Tim was guilty. So Tim's been released since. He hasn't obviously came back to the farm because there's an order preventing that from happening. But
I'm hearing that he may have been a plant to cause problems. So he ingratiates
I don't
himself.
know, maybe, but Shadow, Tim has been on the farm so Tim came just after Farm Aid. So you just missed him. I would say he probably came around the 14th of July, 15th of July, or maybe a couple days later. And he basically has been here ever since, other than leaving for a few days. He kind of took on the duties of, the Farm Aid. He would do not the work with the ostriches, but all the chores, all the running around, all the knickknacks that happen to need to be done. Pretty decent guy, a little different, but a pretty decent dude overall. I didn't really have a problem with him. Seemed like a very loyal guy at the least. But maybe a little extreme. Some of us might be a little bit more extreme than others. So allegedly, he's the guy who went in and was carrying around fuel in the neighbor's yard, and unfortunately, allegedly punched the neighbor lady who's 75 in the face. So that part, I can't defend you for that, no matter who you are. Like you drew the line there, and the liaison officer Paul, I believe you met Paul when you were out here. He's like, Jeff, he punched a 75-year-old lady in the face. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I know. But it's still alleged. There's film that shows somebody going through there. They can't really pinpoint who it is. There is no real witness to who did it, and she's not sure, really what the person looked like that did it. So the only real connection is he had a bite mark on his arm. Or right. I believe on his arm.
She said she bit him and he had a bite, right?
Yeah, and he had a mark kind of right where that bite mark, she said, was. So, and other than that,
she
bit him. I guess after he punched her in the face, she bit him. Like, I get you're allowed to defend yourself.
Sure.
But
like what?
Yeah, like I know. You can't make this stuff up, Shadow. You can't make this stuff up. And the funny thing was, Shadow, that was right in the middle of negotiations. So we stopped the negotiations, you can't make it up, walked down the street with the cops, allowed them to deal with Lois, and then walked back out to the line that we had created. Like,
I don't know what to say about that. That's crazy. And
I know it's utterly insanity.
It's probably not even the craziest thing.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's probably not even the craziest thing that's happened because you were just about to mention some other weird thing.
Oh, and just all day chaos, from the lying, with Katie
Dude,
and
go
Karen.
back to where you were because your signal is starting to get a little
Oh,
bit
sorry. Yeah, I'm
weird.
trying to find a good spot. It's hard to dial it in sometimes. So, starting right out in the morning, we had developed a pretty good rapport with them. Like we were communicating well. There was honesty, an olive branch this way and olive branch that way kind of thing. Today, basically long and short, Doug was given the information that Katie and Karen would be allotted the opportunity to feed the birds one more time. That came from one of the officers that we have created decent communications with. So we assumed, it must be pretty good. So Doug called Katie, Katie called me. That's when I got on the mic. She told me to thank the CFIA. And then 1 hour passed, they weren't done feeding the birds and they got arrested. So it created a really awkward energy for a while. Like, why the heck are you guys lying to us? Like, why should we work with you? Why should we show you any sort of level of dignity or respect? And the protesters did not like it. The protesters here were very upset about that, and they were letting the officers on the front line know that. Just the energy all day long. Weird watching the CFIA rolling in truckloads of stuff and not really being able to do anything about it, Shadow. It's gut wrenching, like we're fighting every which way we can. We're working the angles to buy time. But in the process of that happening, they are still moving forward. It's such a weird position to be in, watching them advance while you're literally trying to hold them back. It's literally a different type of war. It may not be this physical war where we're shooting and throwing bombs at each other, but the calculated moves and the decisions both sides are making are depicting how long this thing lasts.
Are
And we
you
need a couple days. We need a couple days for Omar.
are you guys inviting more people? Like I mean, I know of people that are coming across the country right now to get there, hopefully in time.
I hope they get here in time. Yeah, the numbers have skyrocketed. We're well over 200 here now. Maybe we can walk through the field. I don't want to lose the signal, but there is cars everywhere. Like from start, it's like a drive-in movie theater right now. The big field in the front, it's packed with cars. It's full. People are rolling in all day. They are still allotting people in. Now, my biggest fear is eventually, depending on the situation, if they decide to not allow any more people in. And that'll be a shame if they do. But the liaison officers that they assign to this situation, one of their main objectives was to make sure that we were allotted all our rights in this process, that it wasn't going to turn into something like they used Ottawa as an example, where we weren't allotted the right to protest, voice our opinions. Like we can literally sit there and just harp on these guys from 10 feet away all day long and they take it. And I'm not saying that's right, but the reality is they're respecting the process. That would be the PLT. I think it just flashed up there, the PLT. That's exactly what it is. The PLT is a division of the RCMP. They don't have guns, they don't have cuffs, they don't make arrests.
They wear golf shirts.
Yeah, pretty much. They wear golf shirts and they eat bagged lunches. And Doug steals the bagged lunches.
Margaret Barber is asking, is it true they were towing cars off the side of the road? Do you know?
They threatened to. They haven't towed any because they have been offering the olive branch of if this is your car, you want to move it, you're welcome to. If you don't, we're going to tow you. So now that's down here. I can't speak for up on the highway.
Can you show us some of the cars that are parked in the area you were talking about, Jeff? Can you turn it around?
Let's go for a little walk here. Turn the camera around.
I'll let you know if the signal gets fuzzy.
Sure. So, I mean, we got a lot of people just hanging out up front right now. This is the front entrance.
Well, we may as well have them wave if they're going to be on camera.
Hey, guys, you want to say hi to Shadow Davis?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey, Shadow, this is Bob Wiles.
Hey,
Here,
Bob.
you,
How you
you
doing?
recognize my name. Much more people here. Lots more people even came. Like I was in the house doing some work. Probably 30 or 40 more people have showed up
There's
since.
Drea.
This
Hey,
is
Drea.
just out front. There's Drea. Hey, say hi to Shadow.
Hello, Shadow. Thanks
How you
for
doing?
letting people see what's going on out here.
Thank you for your coverage of this. Drea, were you up in the chopper today getting that beautiful footage?
We were up in the chopper, you know, trying to see what they were about to do. So
Did you get any good stuff? I mean, I was looking at it, but I didn't have a lot of time. I went, okay, that's a tree and a river.
I know, right? Yes, we got to see that just about 5 minutes down the road is a commanding station. Earlier, I was there on foot and I could see that's where the hay was and that's where what looks like blue fences are, but I couldn't see beyond there. So in the air, we can see they're all stationed right there. They really are.
Yeah, they're right there.
They're
a
right
few
there.
kilometers
There's tons
away.
of them. Yeah.
How many RCMP officers are there, do you estimate?
Well, obviously some are dispersed all over the property, but the ones that were still there when I was in the air was probably like 20, and then there's some trucks. You know, looks like they're big. What do you call that? The commanding stations.
Command stations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have put up a couple command stations around the property, Shadow.
Yeah.
One on Incinerator Road there on the far side of the farm, and then one on the opposite side of the farm, right where you can't quite see it, just as you go around the corner where the tree line is, conveniently.
Yeah.
The
Go
other
ahead.
thing that what it appears to us, and also which aligns with the intel that I had, was the hay bales are being used for basically a kill corner. But I thought it was going to be a circle, but it's just sort of a V shape. But it also looks like they're using the hay bales to disguise their vehicles from the public eye. They kind of just blocked where they're all parking as well, because of course they don't want to be known. So
These speaking about not being known, has anybody been able to identify the kill crew at all?
So I took great care before I released that name, Nucor Environmental Solutions. I've been pretty busy, so I haven't been able to sort of combat that statement that came out. If you read the statement very carefully, they do not say that they never were contracted. And my intel is pretty good, and it's been correct about everything. And I gave them time. I know that their lawyers were aware of what I was going to publish. I also spoke to someone who works with that company. I said, I want to make sure they know before I publish this. They said they were a Rebel News fan, and they said that they were going to make sure that Dwayne, the regional manager out of Richmond, who I had already emailed, saw it, and they had about an hour window, and they never got back to me. They still have never gotten back to me to say that what I said was false, which would be the first thing you would do. And they took about 2 days to put that vague statement up. So I will get back to them and do a full report, but I don't think my intel was off. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're still going to show up here. I don't know if they canceled. I have no clue, but
So far, you're like 2 for 2 on the others, so I can't see you being really far off on this one.
yeah.
And for them to release the statement saying, you know, we used to do business with them, but we don't anymore.
Well, and to not tell the reporter who broke the story, they still have not responded to me as we're speaking. I mean, number one, if you are not the company, the first thing you're going to do is immediately contact me and say, no, you got the wrong company. And they have never done that. So.
Yeah, they're just trying to keep their heads down right now, I think, and hopefully this all blows over. And I think there's
but I don't believe they are parked over in that commanding station. However, somebody, and I did say it, said they saw their vehicles across the ferry.
I personally didn't see it or see pictures,
either,
but
so.
you know, there's been intel that's been wrong, but a lot of the intel that we don't see pictures of ends up being right. I got intel this morning, Shadow. Pardon me, I got a little frog in my throat. That said, we are going to get 4 loads of hay passed by us pretty darn quick. And sure enough, 2 hours later, four truckloads of hay whizzed by. So we have eyes pretty much from here, 200 kilometers west. We have eyes north of the ferry. So, I mean, not much can come this way without us knowing. But the problem is there's not a lot we can do about some of it other than being prepared mentally and knowing that it's coming. The CFIA has spent that first day dialing in this property with drones, with whatever they're using to really pinpoint really precise locations and really precise access points. They don't want this public. They don't want people to know what's happening. Just like today with Katie and Karen, they literally took them to the other side of the farm, waited till they were feeding the pens on the other side of the barn before they arrested them. Why? So none of us could get video of them arresting Karen and Katie. You know, they know the power of our social media. That's the only thing that scares these guys, is they know that when we publish something, we make it go far and wide.
Yeah.
And, you know, in reality, that's the only thing that's been helping us win any battles lately. Like, God willing, Omar's going to come in with this stay, and we're going to be able to tell these guys to kick rocks. But in the meantime, it's public appeal. That's the only thing we got rolling for us. The only thing we can truly rely on is the people.
I would suggest, and Viva Fry even posted this today, and I did this as well. I called the Kelowna RCMP and asked them straight up, what are you guys doing in Edgewood at Universal Ostrich Farm? What are you doing there? Do you not have
no doubt.
better things to do with the resources you've been allocated by the province of British Columbia? Right? And
Yeah,
they say, well,
absolutely. It's ridiculous. We got a kid lost in the crow's nest right now, a little tiny boy, and they have 2 officers searching this whole landmass to find this little boy lost, and they're publishing they're lacking resources.
and
Well,
how,
I
and yet,
see a lot of resources sitting here, eating sandwiches, joking around, hanging out all day long, because that's what they're paid to do. They're paid to sit here and do nothing and really essentially be nothing. And then we're hearing stories of kids that are lost, kids that need to be found, and nobody's there to find them. Sorry, Shadow. I
okay, you got me now?
There we go. Yeah, we got audio.
Okay, so, you know, I think they're screwing with my feed here somehow. I don't
You know what? I wouldn't doubt it, Shadow. They nip my signal every few minutes here right now. Everybody's been having problems. I used to never have an issue doing lives up by the pens,
Yeah.
and all day long, every 3 minutes. And I'm not using a Wi-Fi with everyone else. I'm using my own signal. And yeah, it's crazy. They have drones apparently in the sky. We were wondering what they all were. We got some intel that we're being listened to through some of these drones.
Good. I hope they hear every word.
Yeah, exactly. I hope they're listening to our conversation right now. So here, I'll give you a quick walk down. Well, you know, kind of just an idea of how many people are truly here right now. I've never seen this many cars and vehicles and trucks and everything here at once. Stretches all the way to the back corner down there. And then another row starting here.
Is that more than Ostrich Fest?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would say at least equivalent to.
Wow.
You
That was
know,
a
so
big- that was a big
everybody's
party.
everywhere. We still got the kitchen tent going. Yesterday night, like 40 pizzas showed up, different people sending in pizza. It's kind of like it was back in the day, you know, back in May, Shadow June, when everybody was just, you know, together, unified, standing up for a solid cause, no matter who we are. We found that fire again, which is amazing. And, you know, we're burning that light. And, you know, if we can get Omar, if Omar can get this stay in and we can send these guys away, that's monumental. It's
So-
monumental that we held them off long enough, you know, to allow that process to happen.
So the stay was filed this morning. We thought it was filed yesterday. What was
Yeah,
the delay?
so
Any word?
yeah, Omar said it was procedural. He said he had to do it in the right order to allot the ability for success for the farm. So a lot of people were like, why isn't he on it? Why isn't it filed already? He had to wait till that reconsideration letter was denied. So he actually had recourse for an appeal. And then based on that recourse and the sought out attempt to get into Supreme Court, that allows the right for the stay. So the stay is based on that now. So there is a good chance that it could come through. But the CFIA clearly is not taking that into consideration right now. They're here, they're setting up for this call. And like Katie said earlier, like it might not even be days anymore. It could potentially be, hours.
Yeah.
So we're up, we're at it, and every single angle we're working. We know we had the US Embassy trying to put pressure on the agricultural minister and the Canadian government right now. I don't know how much bigger we can get politically. You got RFK on your side, you got Oz, you got John Casamedias, you got Andy Soros. Like, who else do you need? You got billionaires, and you got, the medical team of the United States government at your beck and call to help you,
I
fight this
suppose
battle.
if we could get Donald Trump to say something publicly, that might make a difference.
I think that would be the catalyst right there.
Yeah. So is this rolling out, like, because you've been at the farm for quite a while off and on, Jeff, and I know you've been a huge supporter and you've done a lot for the family. Then we all sat around talking by the campfire at night about how is this going to roll out? Like, how do you envision this happening? Is this happening the way you imagined it would?
Somewhat, Shadow, yes. Somewhat, yes. I figured we'd get to this point. I always had faith that the appeals, when we were at Farm Aid and we were, waiting that next month for the tribunal to decide if the farm, was in the right. I was always hoping that they would reverse this, and even if the CFIA won that battle, they would actually look to the light and say, okay, yeah, well, we were right, but now these birds have been alive for all this time, and ethically it doesn't make sense to do this. That was hope, and it wasn't just hope just for the birds. It was hope in our system. It was a hope for our society that we haven't gone that far down the drain to where we're that depleted of knowledge and wisdom and empathy and love in our hearts. It really bothered me that we have a system that represents a big chunk of Canada. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency, they got their hands on everything, Shadow. And they have this kind of power, this kind of unchecked power, where they're not even willing to be ethical with their own policies. Like, they could have tested the birds. We know that. It's in the policy that it says they could. They can drop the order. They have the right to do that. But they won't. They won't show that form of humanity. And to me, that's disturbing.
There's a lot of people, Jeff, who think that there's one stubborn bureaucrat with a lot of power inside the CFIA that's doing this, and he or she, his ego's been bruised for the last 9 months because the farm didn't go along with what they said. Well, I'd like to think that's the case. I don't think it is. I think there's more behind this. What's your take on that?
I do think we have a disgruntled person. I think what's his name? McKinnon, the guy who runs it, Paul McKinnon.
Yeah. Yep.
I believe that he definitely is disgruntled. He's pissed off. We're hurting his pride. We're making him look foolish. But absolutely, Shadow. I mean, put my tinfoil hat on. But if Big Pharma ain't behind this, then I don't know what. Like, what's the one entity out there that natural immunity hurts, Shadow?
Well, come on, let's be honest. And there's so much more to it than that. I mean, I was going to ask Drea before we left her why this story is so important to her, because there's some people out there that just go, okay, so it's ostriches. I mean, it's a sad thing, but it's not the end of the world, right? And I look at it differently. I see this as an intersection of so many different things that have been coming together for the past 3 or 4 years, with the 15-minute cities, the property rights, the farmers, the control of the food, and the government overreach, the authoritarianism that's going on. It's such a confluence of all of those things. And if they get their way on this, then it sets a bad precedent going forward for all of those things I just mentioned.
Absolutely. Shadow, it's a sliver of the pie of the agenda that they're installing, because they decided that we should live this way. And it's better for us to live this way, when really it's just better for a couple guys who control everything at the end of the day. I mean, we could get into the thick and the thin, and you and I were those guys. But, you know, for the general people that, you know, just like to keep it simple, a handful of people think they know best for everybody, and they don't care what damage they do instilling that plan for everybody, as long as they can stay in control of that plan. And, you know, I used to think I was nuts. There was a point where I was like, man, dude, you must be nuts. You must be truly nuts to think the way you do. But I don't think we are nuts, Shadow. I think every year goes by and we're like, yep, see, we told you, yep. And everybody's shocked. They're like, oh my God, this stuff. And we're like, well, yeah, you know, like, aren't you paying attention?
Told you
So, you know,
3
when
years
we
ago
come to
this was going to happen. Come on.
yeah, exactly. So when we come to places like Universal Ostrich Farm to stand up against these overreaches, these scenarios where the government is really slamming us down and trying to set a precedent that, you know, like they are the master. We have to do this. If we stop doing this, Shadow, where are we going to be? What happens when we don't? What happens when guys like me and you stop talking out, stop spreading truth, stop standing up for the little guy? You know, we fully engulf their plan at that point.
Yep.
We hit step 3 and we're sucked right in. So, you know, these are the last stands. Katie's not wrong to say this is the last stand, to try to convince people to rise up, because how many more
You're in a bad spot. Move back.
times are we really truly going to have the opportunity to fight back? What happens if we get to a point where we don't have the ability? You tell me when she's good again.
Just keep going. Another
I
20
should have
steps.
stayed
how to
over
do
there,
it.
but they were
Yeah,
firing
it's
up
all
a
right.
generator.
All right, so you're getting better. So you were talking about Katie not wrong when she says this is the last stand. What happens if ...
Yeah, you know, like, what happens if we stop getting the ability to fight back? Right now, here, right now in our lives, we still can rise up. We still can have a voice. We still have the ability to fight back because we have a little tiny bit left. You know, they've taken most of it, but we got a little tiny bit left, and we're holding on to that little tiny bit. And that gives us a little bit of a voice still, a little bit of power, and the ability to try to create change. What happens when they take that little bit left? Where are we going to be? That's why these fights are so important, my friend, because we're fighting for that last little bit that we haven't lost yet. That bit that is inherently given to us from our parents and our grandparents, something that we should hold on to dearly. And if I don't keep that, what am I going to give to my kids?
My friend,
Where are they going to be?
I'm going to leave it at that. I want to thank you for
Perfect.
coming on again tonight. And if you want to do this again tomorrow night, I'm all in for that. Please
You
give
bet.
Katie and Karen all of our best. And oh, by the way, did Katie's dad have a heart attack, or is that just a rumor? What
That's
happened
just
there?
a rumor. Eric was stressed out. He wasn't feeling the best. In the light of the situation with Katie and Karen staying in the pens and everybody on the ball, we want to make sure Eric is taken care of first and foremost. So the family chose, you know, to allow him to go to the hospital, you know, to make sure he was all good, get him checked out, and have a couple days away from all the stress that's going on here. I'm sure, you know, as soon as things mellow out a bit, Eric will be rolling home. But yeah, no heart attack, just stress. Katie, well, as you've seen, Katie's healthy, happy, a little stressed out from the day. Almost our little fugitive now.
Yeah, right. You know, I have to say, people were telling me, well, if Katie comes on tonight, she's going to be all messed up. I said, yeah, maybe. She's a pretty emotional person, but wow, the strength in that girl, right?
She's a strong girl. Yeah, she's a strong woman. She's carried herself through. Like, how many people can say, yeah, you know, somehow I figured out a way to connect with John Casamedias, and I figured out a way to connect with RFK and Dr. Oz and all these connections that Katie was able to
Well, that's one thing, but I mean, think about all the other things that she's been through. You guys have all been through, right? But
yeah,
she feels it. She grew up there, man. She grew up with these animals.
this is her
And
life. Yeah.
yeah, it's the life's work going right down the drain, and all of these court battles and all of the stress and all of the research and the work, and she has essentially turned herself into a very good spokesperson. And I remember having her on back in January or February, and she was a little bit hesitant, right? Like, because she didn't know the drill, but man, she's a quick learner too.
You give her a camera now, she'll steal the show every time, right?
Every time.
And you know, Karen too. Karen is also a pillar of pure strength. I mean, what that woman puts herself through, and then how she still gives herself to everyone else and makes sure everybody is taken care of and feels important and full bellies and all this stuff. And then, you know, okay, I better get out to my birds. I got to sleep in the pens, you know, because these pricks are coming after them, you know, like.
Hey, who's feeding the birds right now? If Katie and Karen are not allowed
yeah,
back
I'm
in the
glad
pens.
we brought that up before we go. So, you know, 26 hours came by. I lost it on the CFIA. I got the mic out. The mic seems to work, Shadow. I don't know what it is about the mic. And I called them out and I said, hey guys, where's their food? It's been 26 hours. This is what the act says. They said, okay, we're putting together a plan. You know what their plan was, Shadow? They ran around and threw grain on the ground.
They're already in violation, and for that
They're
reason,
already
they
in
should
violation.
be kicked off. They should be kicked off and have to come up with a new plan already. That's it. Gone. Come back later when you've got a better plan. Period. Right?
I got one more person for you to say hi to.
All right.
The man,
hey, Dave.
The myth, the legend.
Hey, how you doing, Shadow?
Very good, Dave. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Dave,
I lie.
Dave,
I'm like the CFIA. I lie. you're not live or anything, foolish.
Oh yeah, this is live.
Live.
This
Very
is live.
Dave, in case you don't know, is one of the co-owners, along with Karen, of Universal Ostrich Farm. How are you doing, Dave?
Stressed, to put it mildly. Yeah, it's so crazy, absolute craziness, what they're doing or attempting to do.
What was it? Everything you expected
with them coming in?
Yeah,
I'm very, very disappointed. You know, we started to have a relationship where we could talk to them, both the RCMP and the CFIA. And I thought, hey, you know, like maybe we can have some reasonable grounds to do some negotiating. And then they lie.
Yeah.
You know, when they arrested Karen and Katie, they lied about that. They've lied about their feeding program. We told them you can't switch 100% diet.
Are you guys in the pens? Are you allowed in the pens, or are you like?
Not anymore.
Okay.
No, as of today, we're not allowed back in the pens. Anywhere's on that side of the road.
That's insane. All right, I gotta get going. But Dave, go ahead. Go ahead.
They don't know what they're doing with these animals. It's a shame. That's what's really, really troubling. Is they don't know how to look after them.
That's something that needs to be told to the lawyers, and hopefully something can happen with that, because if they're mistreating these animals in any way, like Jeff was saying earlier, I mean, like Jeff, the deal is that these people have to have a plan. They have to feed them 24 hours, feed and water them every 24 hours at the very least, and they're not following it. And if they don't know what they're doing, what's the point in all of this anyway? Yeah.
They're just dumping feed on the ground. And it's a totally different feed. The birds, you know, you just can't switch a diet 100% on any animal in a day.
Okay, Dave, Godspeed. Best of luck, my friend. I'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right, Shadow. It's been a pleasure, my friend. Tomorrow night, same time. I'll give you the grease.
Okay, brother. Take it easy.
All right,
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Jeff Gaudry from Universal Ostrich Farm. I have more for you. Now, Jeff was talking about, just a couple of minutes ago, he was talking about how they're trying to take everything from us. But we've been able to band together. We have been able to communicate with each other, and we've been able to share messages, get the word out. I see tonight that we have well over 4,000 people watching right now across all platforms, which is fantastic. That's higher than normal. But are we going to be able to do this in another couple of months? The Liberals have got a new hate crime bill that could criminalize protests and probably online content. And we're going to get to that in just a second. I have more, including Donald Trump's speech at the United Nations today, Mark Carney willing to get us into a war in the Middle East. There's so much more going on. And I've got it for you. We're coming right back. The Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Silver is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from SilverCeuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets SilverCeuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
CanadaNanoSilver.com, you guys, 204-808-9292 if you want to talk to Kevin and Anna, get some more details, make an order, whatever you want to do, and all the information that you're looking for. Will I turn blue? No, you won't. Go to CanadaNanoSilver.com for more information. So this hate crime bill, as reported by left-wing corporate CTV News, could criminalize protests. That's what some civil liberty groups are suggesting. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association says the Liberal government's new hate crimes bill runs the risk of criminalizing peaceful protest. This bill was introduced last Friday, in case you weren't aware. It would create new crimes of obstruction and intimidation aimed at protecting places of worship and institutions, including schools, daycares, senior residents, used by an identifiable group, whatever that means. What's an identifiable group? Is it skin color? Is it religion? Is it sexual orientation? Is it that everybody in this group happens to like hockey? They're all Oilers fans? What is it? This is ridiculous. The new intimidation offense is far broader than existing prohibitions and could criminalize peaceful protests simply because they're seen as disruptive, said Anne Boussière-McNichol, the director of the group's Fundamental Freedoms program, in a news release yesterday. The maximum penalty under this new regulation would be 10 years in prison. And that penalty is very severe, could push activists into silence. The civil liberties group, only certain activists, I would imagine, because of the political slant of this particular government, they are trying to shut down free speech, my friends. This is one of the reasons I developed the website in the first place. In case they do, in case this show can no longer exist on social media, no matter which platform it is, then you can still find it at shadowdavis.com. The Civil Liberties Group said the bill could affect tens of thousands of community spaces across the country. It added police can protect public safety using existing laws on mischief, intimidation, threats, and harassment. This bill would not create bubble zones to prohibit protests around designated buildings. Such zones have to be ordered by provinces or municipalities. Justice Minister Sean Fraser told reporters Friday the bill goes to great lengths to specifically protect the ability of Canadians to take part in peaceful protests. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And it's funny, whenever these liberals introduce a new bill, they lie about it in public so they can get it passed, so they can get the public on their side. And then they do the exact opposite of what they said they were going to do while they were trying to get it passed. The bill would also make it a criminal offense to willfully promote hate through the use of hate symbols. What does that mean? What is a hate symbol? As I have said on this show repeatedly for the past 5 years, one man's hate is another man's awesome. Create a new category of hate crime, which would be layered on top of existing offenses. They want you. They want us gone. And the best way to do it is to take away our means of communication. Period. Bottom line. And they're also still trying to create division. Mark Carney talking about the fact that that we're in crisis, even though, what did he say last week, that we have the best deal of any country in the world with the United States of America. Here is Mark Carney today. Now, all of the world leaders are at the UN World Summit, right? And here's Mark Carney today talking about the possibility of a war in the Middle East and what Canada's involvement might look like.
Of Hamas as a force, certainly as a political force, military force first, and political force, is one of the conditions for a sustained cessation of hostilities and peace. And when you say who is going to do that, there are many proposals, as I suspect you're aware, from a variety of Arab states, combination of Arab states and European states, to which Canada would be party if they were to come to pass. And European states, to which Canada would be party if they were to come to pass.
Oh, so we're part of the coalition of the willing. And if you're a parent that has a son or daughter who's of legal fighting age, chooses to join the Canadian forces, they could be sent to a war that is not our own. That's ridiculous. But that's what Mark Carney sees as necessary. He's also talking about China today in one of these group discussions on stage at the United Nations Global Summit. Talking about China as a world leader in climate change initiatives. Here he is.
My experience with China, they are, amongst other things, very sincere and engaged on climate. This is a country run by engineers. This is a country that understands a lot of the engineering solutions to issues around emission. They've happened to have built real competitive advantage in a number of these areas as well. So there's a question of how, and there's almost a standing offer from them about how to engage in the global comments in and around climate.
Did he just say that China is a world leader? Like I just said, did he just say that? A world leader in climate change initiatives, renewable energy? Well, let's see here. China boosting coal capacity at record high, according to a report came out in August, just a few weeks ago. China has expanded the capacity of coal-fired plants more in the first half of 2025 than at any time in the past 9 years, when they were building 2 new coal plants a week. The spike comes despite massive renewable capacity. Why aren't they using their renewable capacity instead of building these coal plants? I'll tell you why. I don't think I need to tell you why. Because renewables are not reliable. And they're way too expensive. And I'm sure China's making a token effort to do that stuff to appease the globalists for now. Meanwhile, in the United States, Donald Trump is still the president. And here's a part. This is not the whole thing, is it? Let me see here.
Only is the UN not solving the problem.
No. Here's a part of his UN speech today. Watch.
Problems it should. Too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the #1 political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable.
Those people in the audience do not look happy with him because they're all globalists.
The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and deplete our social safety net.
Interesting. So that's what they get down south, just across that imaginary line, the 49th parallel. And up here, climate change, trans rights, Antifa. Trump yesterday designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. Up here, they're funded by the federal government, by us. That's the difference right there. If anybody is looking for something to use as an example about the difference between our country and the United States, that's it right there. Right there. You guys know Pastor Mark Driscoll? He's an author, he's a pastor, and he's also a podcast host. And this is what he said. I think it was a day or two after Charlie Kirk was assassinated a couple of weeks ago. Let's watch this.
A dad, not a pastor of the church, and you didn't have a church to go to, or you were just at one of these churches that ignored it, and you have a conviction you need to find a new church. What would be the things you would look for in a new church? How would you discern whether that's a church to bring your family to? And if you did bring your family, what are the things you're looking for to find a godly, courageous church?
Avoid the things
Hard to say, but
sort of quasi-Christian, like Unitarianism. Cults include Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnessism. They have a different Jesus, a different gospel. Avoid them. Those are not Christian. I would steer clear of anything in a lot of the mainline denominations. There are some rare exceptions. Your United Methodist is gone. Your Evangelical Lutheran Church in America is gone. Yeah, those kinds of mainline churches are gone. Episcopalianism has been gone for a long time. They may have beautiful buildings, but the Spirit of God is not there, and the Word of God is not honored. And any church that's flying a rainbow flag, don't even pull into the parking lot, because if lightning strikes, you don't want to be caught in the crossfire.
Okay, so what he also said was, if you're a pastor, the Sunday following Charlie Kirk's assassination, if your pastor did not mention the assassination of Charlie Kirk in his service today or her service today, then you need to leave that church. Your pastor is not a pastor. Your pastor is a coward. And I took those words and I went, yeah, this is something that needs to be addressed. Not necessarily the assassination in and of itself, but people's reaction to it. Remember, and this is not that long ago. Remember those leftists, they're still celebrating online. One to the neck. That's what they were saying, right? Laughing about it, dancing about it in the streets. Many people getting fired. Jimmy Kimmel's back on the air, by the way, or will be back on the air, according to ABC Disney. But that doesn't mean he's back on the air. We're going to get to that story. So I thought, if my pastor at the church that I go to doesn't want to talk about Charlie Kirk, and to be fair, my pastor did talk about the news of the week. He didn't mention Charlie Kirk by name or what had happened or the downfall of society or a portion of society. He didn't talk about any spiritual wars going on. And I was very disappointed in that, so much so that I actually got up and left. I left the service. And I've been looking for a new church to go to in the Winnipeg area for the past couple of weeks. And somebody sent me this just a few days ago, and I investigated. There's this church, it's called the Church of the Rock. There's 4 or 5 different locations around Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. And the lead pastor, the senior pastor, his name is Mark Hughes. Now, he closed her down during COVID. He got it wrong, and he has come out and he has admitted that in the past couple of years. But here's what he had to say about the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Say one other thing. Let me talk for a moment about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This assassination was not just tragic, but was an indictment of a culture that no longer tolerates the values of Christianity and free speech. And it is much bigger. And some of you say, what are you talking about? It's not an indictment of the culture. It was one deranged young man with a rifle. No, that is not true. It is a culture that allows that sort of thing to happen. And we have all kinds of people, either passively or even aggressively, asserting that political violence is an answer to our problems. And you say, I don't believe that. Well, you better go on social media and see what they're saying about this. And there's people saying he had what was coming. People saying vile and disgusting and hateful and vicious things. This man got assassinated in public in front of his wife and his children, 31 years old, and got gunned down. And we had a cabinet minister here in the province that wrote this vile social media post, I don't know if you saw it, and said, I have no empathy for this man. Well, I thought, my God help us. And I hope this thing is a wake-up call for us as a people, a wake-up call that we would weep before him and we would cry out for the winds of change, because Lord, help us, is all I can say.
So he and his wife started this church, the Church of the Rock, back in 1987, just a small little church. And now it's grown, like I said, to 4 or 5 locations all across Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. And I think I'm going to give these guys a try this coming weekend, because I appreciated that message. And I hope that Pastor Mark has been woken into what we're going through right now. He doesn't need to address it every single week, but he does need to address it when the time comes. Speaking of that minister, that cabinet minister who said vile things, her name is Nahanni Fontaine. She is, believe it or not, the Minister of Families for the NDP Manitoba government. And according to aptnnews.ca, the office of the Manitoba Cabinet Minister of Families, Nahanni Fontaine, was vandalized. What? Yeah, this news came out yesterday. Winnipeg police say they're investigating after the office of a First Nations politician. They say that because it's APTN. A First Nations politician in Manitoba was vandalized over this past weekend. Wooden boards, there you go. Wooden boards are now covering up the smashed windows of Nahanni Fontaine's constituency office on Main Street in Winnipeg, an area she doesn't live and hardly visits. Fontaine is Manitoba's Minister of Families, Minister responsible for accessibility, and Minister responsible for gender equity. Earlier this month, she was under fire for reposting a photo text post on Instagram condemning recently assassinated American right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. The post she shared came from Instagram user Chi Jim, a U.S.-based indigenous activist who said he had no empathy for Kirk, who he said stood for nothing but hate. You know, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Nahanni Fontaine, in an effort to gin up some public sympathy and get people off the post she made regarding Charlie Kirk, actually hired some people to do this to her own office. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. And then try and blame it on some right-wing extremist. Because I believe that's how demented this person is. And she does control, sadly, some serious levers of power in this province. And she's also connected to some pretty awful people. So there's a rally coming up. It's going to be Wednesday, October the 1st. So that's next Wednesday from 3 till 4 o'clock on the north steps of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. Nahani must go rally, they're calling it. The Minister of Families thinks Charlie Kirk's children are better off with him dead. We're better off without her in cabinet. This is being organized by a group of young people I haven't personally spoken with them, but I know some who have. And I don't know if they know what they're about to be in for. I have a feeling this is not going to be like the Charlie Kirk candlelight vigil that was held last week at the legislature, where a couple thousand, 2,500 people showed up. It was very peaceful, very, very warm gathering. No Antifa, because I think they probably figured out that that wouldn't be a good look. But for something like this, I believe they will show up. All different groups of them from all over. They're going to show up and they're going to counter protest. So two things. Two pieces of advice for you young people who organize this. You get as many people there as you possibly can. I am talking about in the thousands. If you can, in the thousands. It's not going to be easy because it's in the middle of the afternoon on a work day, for starters. And the second thing is, if Antifa does show up, and I do believe they will, keep it peaceful. Do not respond to their aggression. But also, don't let them run you right out of your own rally either. I know it's a fine line. Police will be there. And they will attempt, and I hope they do better than they did in Ottawa this past weekend, they will attempt to keep the two sides separated. Next Star, I'm going to throw this up on the screen real fast here. Next Star will preempt ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live despite Disney ending his suspension. So last week, Jimmy Kimmel got suspended by Disney ABC for what he said about Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk right after the assassination, right? So they say, well, you know what? We're going to put him back on now. Because the suspension was for, they didn't say how long, right? The immediate future, whatever. That. So they're bringing it back, I believe, because of pressure from the Marxists. But this is good news. Well, we made a decision last week to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live following what ABC referred to as Mr. Kimmel's ill-timed and insensitive comments at a critical time in our national discourse. We stand by that decision, pending assurance that all parties are committed to fostering an environment of respectful, constructive dialogue in the markets we serve, the company said in a statement. In the meantime, we note that Jimmy Kimmel Live will be available nationwide on multiple Disney-owned streaming products, while our stations will focus on continuing to produce local news and other programming relevant to their respective markets. Sinclair broadcast. Oh, by the way, Nexstar owns 32 stations, so they're not going to be showing Kimmel. Even if ABC decides to put him on, these guys are not going to broadcast his show. Sinclair Broadcast Group, which operates 30 ABC affiliates, also announced yesterday that they will continue to preempt the show as well, which brings a total of 62, probably in major cities, 62 ABC affiliates that will not be showing Jimmy Kimmel. So if ABC wants to continue to produce this show for zero audience, good luck, I say. Yes, I'm smiling. I don't like cancel culture. But I do believe there's a time and a place for ill-timed, ill-conceived remarks about another human being. Usually that time and place is never and nowhere. But bottom line is there's something called compassion, and there's something called comportment. And if you don't follow the basic rules of a decent society, then you shouldn't be on TV. That goes for anybody. Finally, people say to me all the time, Shadow, how come you never, ever talk about chemtrails? And I say, well, there's not really a whole bunch of information out there, and there's never any real news on it. Well, now there is. Marjorie Taylor Greene was chairing a congressional committee last week to talk about this very thing. And here is a 5-minute clip of that hearing. Watch.
Myself for 5 minutes of questioning. For years, anybody who questioned weather modification was labeled crazy or a conspiracy theorist. Now we've learned that they've been doing it for decades. And not only is it a multi-billion-dollar industry, the government has invested a lot of Americans' hard-earned tax dollars into it. They've been forced to spin it, and apparently it is now the only way we are going to save humanity. However, let's look at the risk. According to GAO, injecting a cloud with silver iodide increases precipitation anywhere from 0 to 20%. It could be even more, but the truth is that we really don't know for certain. The questions that are asked is, can you control the exact amount of precipitation that a cloud will produce if it is injected with silver iodide or another cloud seeding agent? Can you control where the precipitation is going to land with 100% certainty? Can you say that it will not cause or enhance flooding with 100% certainty? Is there any way to measure with absolute certainty the effectiveness of seeding a cloud? Do we know with 100% certainty how much rain a cloud would have produced if it had not been seeded? And lastly, did the American people ever get to have a say in any of this? The truth is that there's absolutely no way to measure the effectiveness of cloud seeding. But something else that needs to be known is the American people deserve to know that there is very little rules and regulations over this. These companies that perform cloud seeding and other types of geoengineering projects have to fill out forms from NOAA, and they have to list what agents they're using. And there is a category that simply says other, and they don't have to even fill out what other means. And I think that's extremely concerning. But I'd like to talk a little bit more about solar geoengineering. It's completely different. More consequential approach to human manipulation of the planet's climate. One geoengineering company called Make Sunsets injects aerosol into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight back into space. I want to show you their frequently asked questions page on their website. Mr. Pilkey, it says here, it says, what are you doing? It says, we're using balloons to launch reflective clouds into the stratosphere. And then it says, why? It says, unless we reflect sunlight, tens of millions of people will die, and 20% of species may go extinct. We're using the most effective way to reflect sunlight that we found and can afford to deploy. Mr. Pilkey, is it true that tens of millions of people will die if they don't do this?
There's nothing you can find in the IPCC or other scientific literature to suggest that's a consequence. Sometimes those stark claims are made to try to scare people into other forms of action on climate change. So if you don't change energy policy, we're going to mess up the stratosphere. And that's how I interpret that.
Sounds like a major threat to make for their company to make money. They said, how long do Make Sunsets clouds stay in the sky? Depending on the altitude and latitude at which we release them, anywhere between 6 months and 3 years. They also say, is it legal? They say, yes, it falls under the Weather Modification Act.
Okay, so I know that many of you know this stuff already because you've dug deep in the past, but I'm sure that some of you who are watching this right now are hearing this for the very first time and you're going, what? They're actually able to do this? What? And they do it? What are they putting up there anyway? But you've looked up in the sky and you've seen these things yourself. And you've seen the crisscross pattern they use from time to time, I'm sure. Well, here it is in a U.S. congressional committee, no less. Let's continue.
Then they have a question here, Mr. Marks. I would like you to stop doing this. And they say, and we would live a future with breathable air and no wet bulb events for generations to come. Convince us there's a more feasible way to buy us time to get there and we'll stop. We'll happily debate anyone on this. Mr. Marks, they don't think that the rest of us have a say in this. How do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that the claim that the air is not going to be breathable is just patently ridiculous. Carbon dioxide, although it is a greenhouse gas, and yes, I do agree that some of the warming, at least, that we've seen in the last 100 years is probably due to CO2 emissions. There's no indication that the air is going to become unbreathable. It makes up 0.04% by dry air volume of Earth's atmosphere. And submariners in the Navy are subject to concentrations exceeding 5,000 parts per million and are just fine.
Well, let me ask another question, Mr. Martz. You know, it's sulfur, right, that is put into the air. Is there health consequences for people, especially like after volcanic eruptions? Is there health consequences to that type of injection into the atmosphere?
Well, sulfur dioxide, if it's injected into the stratosphere, obviously it blocks out solar radiation, and so that would potentially, if it's implemented on a large enough scale over a long period of time, it could reduce crop yields because obviously plants need sunlight to grow. They need water and CO2, just basic photosynthesis. And there's also concerns that if it gets into the troposphere, it could create acid rain, and that is called acid deposition into the soil. And that makes it hard for plants to obviously to grow, and that harms plant and animal life as well. Obviously,
Mr. Martz, I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Remember back in the 80s, acid rain because of the hole in the ozone. No, it was because of these idiots spraying silver nitrates and aluminums into the sky. And of course, that just kind of falls down on us and goes into our systems, into our water, into our food, our lungs, our very cells. There is a good thing you can do to get rid of all that stuff that you've been breathing, eating, and drinking for the past, 40 years or so. Do a cleanse. Do a cleanse. Find out the easiest cleanse that you can do and do it. And I'll tell you what, after a couple of days doing a cleanse, you're going to feel one hell of a lot better. That's it for the show tonight, guys. And for you newcomers, normally we're not on this long. Usually we cap it right at the top of the hour, but because of the updates from Universal Ostrich Farm tonight, again, thank you to Jeff Gaudry for doing this. Thank you to Katie for coming on tonight, especially Katie after your tumultuous day today, Andrea Humphrey of Rebel News for coming on tonight, and all of the supporters who have arrived at Universal Ostrich Farm in the past few days. Thank you for being there. And all of you guys who have been sending your support, that is absolutely fantastic. These people are strong. They'll be able to withstand pretty much anything. We saw that today. And we wish the best in hopes they get their emergency stay in place and soon to get rid of these fiends on their property. The extension is coming up for all access members at shadowdavis.com in just a couple of minutes. If you're not one, become one. And again, I told you guys earlier in the show, 2 reasons for the extension. First one is a little extra content, keeps the show going, helps support me and the show. The other thing is the Liberal government is going to be bringing in some kind of censorship law or bill, at least in the next couple of months, that has to do with that hate crimes bill they introduced last Friday. And they are going to shut down whatever they think happens to be hate speech. And that would be shows like this. They're going to try and take us right off social media, just like they were doing during COVID. And by the way, today, or was it yesterday, Google admitted, and Google runs YouTube, just so you're aware, Google admitted to censorship being influenced by the Biden administration. They admitted it and said they will drop all censorship except for what's in good taste and what's not. It's out there. But in Canada, it may not. I mean, right now we're in good shape. Right now, in this moment, we're okay. People can see us. But the Liberals are going to try and shut that down. Become a member at shadowdavis.com. I'll see you guys there in a couple of minutes. For the rest of you, I'll catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another one. I love you all, and I appreciate you all, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.